everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to My Spiritual Money RX. Here in this show, we actually allow you to really look at where you are and where you want to be when it comes to your money flow. And today, I have invited a very special business coach, a friend of mine, a client of mine who really truly specializes in your business process. In fact, we call her the business process architect. Now, she's not an architect, right? She's an intuitive business coach. And so I wanted to welcome Miss Monica Walker on the show. Hey, Monica, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. How's the weather there in your area?
It's
Kansas,
not
right?
bad, actually. It's seasonably warm.
Warm. That's good. That's good. So, without further ado, so I know that you have been in a corporate role, right? And there were so many things that you have as a skill set. And now that you're moving into entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things going on, right? Like when we transition like that. So, do you mind sharing with them? Let's start with let's go down to business of the feelings of what does it feel when it comes to transitions? Is there such a thing? I mean, do we really feel anything when because I remember mine back in 2008, so it's been a long time. So I wanna really see what and explore what people feel as they move into that transitional space.
So, do you mean other than just kind of scared and what the heck am I doing and why am I doing this? Am I sure? Is that what
Yes,
you mean?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So the feelings are, that God is calling you to do or be more than you are or where you are. And you have this internal wrestling that happens where it's between your mind and what you know inside and what you know the truth to be and what you're willing to listen to. So
Mm.
yeah, so the emotions come in, you move forward and you kind of make this decision and then you kind of keep it to yourself a little bit. You might tell a couple people, but you don't really
Definitely.
broadcast it, especially when it comes to an
Right.
entrepreneur. Um, but there's still the fear. There's still the fear because then once you start going and making momentum, there's still some nervousness all the way around, and there's a little bit of insecurity and self doubt that does come up. But all and you know this is right. There's so many things that are unknown that it
Yes.
gets. It's easy to introduce self doubt. So that's where the feelings are.
Right. And that's why I invited you because you're such an expert in that, right? That's why they call you a business process architect because it's not like you have to like throw away all the skills that you've gotten from corporate because some of them are very, very valuable when you actually transition to entrepreneurship, right? The difference is you no longer have a ceiling in your income because you decide what your income ceiling, or maybe there is no ceiling, right? When you move into entrepreneurship. So, give us a little bit of the pointers on what are the steps that we need to take as an entrepreneur. Let's say we're thinking, I think I'm going to go do that. But a lot of people can't jump, right? Because they almost feel like
Mhm.
they're jumping off a cliff. And they're like, where's the net? Where's the net? Can you give me a net, right? There's no net.
Right, right. There's no net. So I want to take a pause for a second, and I want to explain what this business process architect means, right? In layman's terms, it seems fancy. It's like, yes, I want to hear. I know. I think that works for me, but I'm not quite sure. So I don't know if I want to listen. So for those who
Yes.
might have that question, let me put it this way. So I explain for myself, I have an uncanny ability to connect people,
Mm,
processes,
mhm.
systems, tasks, information point A to point B. I identify those gaps, I navigate, and then we make the connection in order to get the outcome. So what does
Mhm.
that mean? An example
Yes.
is just like with this transition. You'll set a goal and you'll say, a company sets a goal and says, I want to make sure that we are the number one information provider in 10 years, or by date ABC, I want to be in X space and we're delivering this solution to the customer. And
Mhm.
so, how do you get there? And so
Right.
sometimes people, right, right. And so sometimes some things are obvious, right? Where I need a set of skills, but there are gaps and there's
Yeah.
holes, and you might have people handling things, and you're saying, but I should have all that I need, right? And
Mhm.
then, but yet things are just kind of clonking along and you don't know what's happening. And so I'm
Correct.
usually that person that comes in and says, let me help smooth this out, and we need this person here, we need to talk to that person, or we need this system. And that's what I do. And I just have noticed that that's regardless of the industry or the levels or what have you. Now, you asked me, what does that look like in that transition, and the kind of getting started. And let me make sure that was a question, right?
Mhm.
Or did I create my own?
Oh,
Okay.
that's okay. You're doing well. It's always almost like when you mentioned what you were saying, most people either fail to plan or plan to fail. In your assessment, right? Or I mean, you work in corporate, you've seen other businesses operate as well. Where do
Right.
they usually go? Is it they fail to plan, or I don't think they plan to fail. Everybody wants to succeed, right? But then if they don't
They
have
do.
the in place, they just kind of like create, oh, whatever that is. Okay, I'll just figure this out and it'll all work out. But then it doesn't work
It'll
out
work
because
out.
it's not consistent.
Exactly. Exactly. People say, oh, it'll all come together. No, not necessarily. I think that people have a plan.
Mhm.
And I would say that they fail to plan thoroughly,
Yeah, that yeah.
because it is because and so let's kind of take it back, not necessarily at a corporate perspective, but at the entrepreneur level.
Right.
They're already kind of nervous. We talked about the feelings, right? We have decided we're doing this. I'm
Yes.
nervous, and there's all kinds of things coming out, and I'm figuring it out as I go. And they've done, as there's a quote I heard that says, leap and the net will appear. And that's what they've
Yeah.
chosen to do.
Yeah.
Great. Good for them. However, there's
However,
also this internal yes, there's an internal dialogue that happens
yeah.
where they may be confident one moment. However, there are some other items that they are choosing to avoid. It'll
Mm-hmm.
make them curl into a ball. And so that's where the failure to thoroughly plan comes in, because they don't really want to deal with it and they kind of keep kicking it down the road. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would say there. And if you take to, like, say, on a larger scale number, you might be so big where someone has an understanding or an assumption that it's being covered, and then there's the gap of communication that happens.
Yeah, yeah. And that is very, very common, right? So if you, like you said, you have to cover all your bases. And then the customer, because we're here for also the clients, right? You can't ignore the clients because they're the ones that are paying the salary for your employees at the same time, or your contractors. So there has to
Mm-hmm.
be, like you said, a good form of communication, like back and forth. It can't be like, I'm just gonna hold on to my feelings, and then I'm not gonna renew. I'm not gonna pay. I'll just figure. Well, no, I'll just forget about you, and that doesn't work very good for
It'll go
business.
away. Just like be quiet. It'll go.
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Okay, so can you share with us some of the pointers that you have for people that are transitioning, right? Because I'm sure you've been in that boat, and it's amazing to have at least some pointers. And like you told me, it can't be rigid, right? These are just suggested outlines, and if you have them in place, great. at least you know where to walk next. Not walk right, but left or forward or backward. Okay, go ahead and share those important points we need to cover.
Absolutely. So when you're transitioning, it's just like when you are getting on a road trip and you are going across country, and maybe you're going from California to New York. You know that you're going, you know that it's going. And so step one is to be clear about where your target is. What are you doing? What is your main goal that you're looking to accomplish? Main goal. You may have some secondaries, but at the end of the day, what are you doing? So
Right.
if you are becoming an entrepreneur, typically your first set of actions is to replace your income so that you don't have that nervous of how am I going to pay my bills every week? How am I going to pay my bills each month?
Yes.
That would be step one. So after you set that and you're clear about your target, now here's the thing: is that if you don't know exactly where you're going, you may keep going around in circles. Don't know why. That does happen.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I one of my favorite movies that I like is National Lampoon's Vacation, and so with Teddy with oh gosh, what's his name? Chevy Chase, and
Okay.
they're going and all over the place, right? So you've got to be ultimate, very very clear, right? And I say even be down to the feeling, right? The emotion of what it's going to be and what you're going to deliver to your customers, and like lay it out. You have to be clear so that you as a leader can then set the projections for everyone else to follow. Okay. Next is the second thing that I'll say is that be clear on your role. Be clear
Mm,
on your role. Why
okay.
is that important? And I bet you guys are saying, okay, Monica, really? That's not rocket science. Like that's
Oh,
not,
that's
you're
okay.
not telling me anything new here. I'm the lead. Like, of course I'm clear. Of course I'm clear on my role. I'm the one that's setting the pace.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how I just said that there are some things that you have to deliver and that there may be gaps and maybe some people are taking care of other things. When
Mm-hmm.
you are now the entrepreneur and you are the main person that's responsible for delivering, you're the face of your company, you're the visionary for your organization.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that when you were in your corporate job, someone else took care of at that higher level. And you
Mm-hmm.
in corporate will take care of some of the secondary, tertiary, or whatever level tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? You now need to bring somebody else on or understand that you need to do what you used to do and then some. And
Yes.
think, Vivian, we were talking about that boat where you've got a lunch boat and you're kind of doing the splits here.
Mm-hmm.
You're gradually spreading yourself thin, maybe.
Right. That's right. That's
Well,
right.
Well, that happens because when you're at that next level as an entrepreneur, there are
Mm-hmm.
parts where you have to make sure that you're focused in on, right? If you're the person that's passionate about your vision, you know your product, you know your services, you know the best, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know those intricate details. And maybe you're not the one that's, maybe if you have given our audience here where we have healers, you may not necessarily be the person that's setting up your calendar and your schedule, but you might need to be able to tell that person that's supporting you to say, I can only work between these hours and these hours. Because if you're an early morning person, cool. So, let's not make your availability too late, because if you're
Right.
exhausted, you're not going to be serving your clients very well, right?
Right. Yep.
And then what are those things that you can pass off to someone else that's not you, that cannot provide what you bring to the table?
Right.
Very,
Exactly.
yeah. And then what's your gap, right? So as we talked about that gap and what is it, and a gap isn't a bad thing, right? It just might be we didn't think about it, we didn't know.
We
And
didn't
so
know.
I'll add in another step of being flexible and comfortable, but and sorry, kind to yourself, because you might have a gap. And like we just said, we're going from California to New York City. And maybe we had one route in mind. And then for some reason we might need a detour and go through Route 66 for a little bit before we then
Right.
go back and go over to whatever the other main highway is. I think it's 90 or 94, one of the two, right? To just keep going. Either way, hey, right? So, but as long as you're addressing that, or you're consciously making a choice of that's a gap that I'm not going to address. Because what happens is some of the gaps are things that need to be done. And if you don't address it, it will just come back and bite you downstream. And you keep kicking that can, right? Like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. Well, you got to deal with it. And it's no judgment. And that's the other thing, that as entrepreneurs, we beat ourselves up for what we didn't know. And we're like, how come I didn't know this? And also, this is not just for entrepreneurs. It's anybody that's going from a state of before and they're transitioning to a new state. So whether you're coming from graduating from college and now you're entering into the workforce, if you're going from a general position into a managerial position, you're going from a senior position and now you're going to an executive C-suite position, right? All of these topics apply.
Correct. Yeah, because it's a trend.
And so then it's transition. Yeah, we didn't say what kind. And then lastly, and then the last thing I'll say is just, being able to course correct, and that flexibility is huge. Yes. As we talked about, we might need to change out, but it is understanding and recognizing that you need to do it. And don't be so rigid. Like, I get it. There's the passion. There's like, I want to do this now. I get it. I totally get it. But sometimes not now is okay. And make sure that you're conscious of what you're risking, because sometimes if you push, regardless of all the red flags that may be coming up, there might be enough benefit by changing the plan. There may be some other jewels along the way that you can experience, right? How many people, how many stories have we heard of in the news or on television, TikTok, where they said, I kind of, this is what I was supposed to be doing, and then this happened, and so I had to change. And wow, that was a pivotal moment, right? So we get some of those ahas. We get some of those, I think somebody calls them God winks or God kisses, or, it's the flex, it's the jewels.
Yes. If you find the jewel, right, in the difficulty, so to speak, or because when you say it's a bad thing, it's not a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. It's just a different experience.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing. And you look for it. Have fun. Being flexible means also being able to have fun. And, I remember, I was learning how to make some cookies. I love baking, and there's a batch of cookies. It requires press, and I have mastered it. Like, I've mastered these cookies to the point to where I get requests. So I have to do them at the end. And oh yeah, I didn't let that secret out, did I?
Yeah, you just did. Thank you. So I'm going to be expecting my batch of cookies in the mail. Okay.
I love it. And I even had to figure out how to melt them because they're delicate. They're wonderfully delicious, and they're delicate. And so I thought, I'm going to change up the recipe. I'm going to try something different because, again, I'm on a new path, and I used the wrong flour, the wrong sugar. I mean, I messed up a whole bunch of great ingredients. But I laughed, and I was like, okay. So I learned a lesson, what not to do. But I also was able to say, I never would have realized the moisture in this type of flour is different. And so there's a different ratio, right? Or there was a project I was delivering And there was, it was like, we're not, I was like, we must deliver by this date. And ultimately there was, because we kept hitting with the way we wanted to go, we came up with a
Right.
so much better solution. And it was like, wow, this
Mm,
is good. This is better than we even thought.
yeah.
Cool.
So in other words, pick up
So,
the nugget,
so
right? Pick up the golden nuggets along the way in your journey. That's what I got from that one.
yeah,
Oh my
that is true.
gosh.
'Cause there are some, you just have to choose to see them. You have to choose to see that.
Mm,
I'll give another example. There, I have determined as a part of I have certain transitions that I'm going to, moving from one to the next myself, because we're always in some phase of transition, right?
yes.
And so I'm going from one phase to the next. And in my next phase, I was praying and God was like, all right, time to close up some loose ends.
That's
Okay,
right. Yeah.
great,
Okay.
no problem. And
'Cause
and
you
I will
listened.
tell you, yes, I had to quiet myself to listen, because I'm grooving, I'm good, I have my plan, I'm running my plan, I'm good. And God was like, come on, sis, you have some things that you missed and you didn't know. So remember those gaps?
Yep.
Didn't know they were loose ends. And I
Mm,
promise you, there were a couple of major things that could have been detrimental had I not noticed.
oof.
And and so as I was going up, from a timing perspective, it happened because it happened in perfect timing. It was bad timing because I had to pause, but it was
Mm,
perfect timing because it was right at the right moment. And had the reminder happened a few weeks later or even days later, there would have been a
mhm.
greater consequence. So I was grateful for that nugget. I said, well, thank you. I didn't even know it was a loose end. Thank you. Cool. And then that
Yeah,
opened up the conversation. Yeah.
that's
So
good.
that's my
Oh,
suggestion.
yes. And the other thing I usually do, and I have shared this with all of you already, is to get a deck of cards. It could be an angel card, an oracle card. And so for this particular segment of the show, I actually pulled out for the next 3 months, right? October, November, and December. Let me just share with you what the angel card said we need to work on. For October, it's awareness, right? It's this card. Okay. It says practice present moment awareness, the meaning you yearn for
Mm.
in the ever present now. So this is from Cheryl Richardson. Um, and it's so true, right? Because if your head is in the past, your mind's in the past, or it's in the future, a lot of times we get kind of depressed from the past because of all the lessons we learned that we probably did not quite course correct, like Monica was saying. So then we keep on repeating the lesson, and God keeps on hitting us with a little hammer. Are you awake yet? So this is October, okay?
Or you're like, should I stay back there?
So October is this. And another angel card that came up was self acceptance for October.
Oh, that's good.
So, how can you accept yourself? Because you know how we beat ourselves up when we are like, but I thought I needed to be over there already, but how come I'm still here? That's very common. It's like this self sabotage thing that people do, or maybe they just don't care for themselves enough, or maybe they don't know, right? It's an unconscious lack of self acceptance. But in October, you really have to accept yourself for who you are, where you've been, who you are right now, and who you can become, because that's when everything changes. Isn't that cool?
Mm.
For November, now this is interesting. November says offer your support to someone, experience the joy of serving others. And the angel card was focus, but upside down. that just means, okay, it doesn't mean bad luck or anything. It's just meaning that you just have to kind of look at things differently when it's upside down. Okay, so that's what we heard from Jeff, right, when we went to Sedona. So focus and support. So perhaps you needed to recharge in October so that you can actually help someone in need. It could be in your family, it could be in your own business, it could be at work. It doesn't really matter, but you can't offer support when you yourself are kind of like half dead, or you don't have any energy. So you have to have your energy, right? And then in
So you
December,
know
look at
what?
in December, oh, hold on a sec, it fell down. In December, it's about patience. Oh my God, patience. It says, be patient, be willing to pass up good for great. And the angel card that came with
Mm.
that is actually signs. But again, it's upside down. That was what you were talking about, Monica. It's like, okay, what if God gave you a sign and you were not paying attention? I mean, has those happened to you before? There's like a sign, but then you're like, do 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 do. Let me see what else, right?
If you're on autopilot, right? Like if you drive past something all the time and you're like, wait, there's a building over there. They painted. I didn't see that. And then like that was done months ago. Oh shoot, I missed it.
Oh, yeah.
While you were talking about that second part about for all three of those, this is kind of cool. So and for those who are watching, yeah, I had my list and she had hers. Like we're separate geniuses here, and that's what we're bringing to you. Um, for me, I had my list, and they actually kind of go together, right? Because if you're saying, being clear and slowing down, so you got to see stuff. The second card with the focus, right, and is if you need to make some updates or sorry, with support
Mhm.
is if you're knowing your role, guess what? You might have to pass something down. You might need to show somebody else what to do. That's how I'm reading that, or at least understanding that. And then lastly is if with I think we talked about that. So I think these marry up to the three steps that I was talking about from a business perspective. And now here's my question is I see you're showing two cards. Does it like do people have to pick one or the other, or do they go together? Like help me out. I don't understand. Sorry, I'm
Usually,
not I'm
so
not like
no, that's okay.
don't know a lot.
So I was asking, so normally I would use one deck of cards, right, when I'm asking a question. So I asked the question of, can you please guide us on what we can share with the audience for October, November, December? So at least they know how to
Oh,
plan their year ahead, right? But then this other card was calling to me and say, well, but we need a little bit of angel wings, to help you. It's almost like a secondary
okay.
card because I'm asking for divine guidance. It's like, okay, so you're telling me I needed to practice present moment awareness, and then the angel card came up with self-acceptance. I'm like, maybe
Mm.
when I'm really present in the moment, maybe I'm not present in the moment, maybe because there's parts of me that's not quite accepting myself fully for what I am at that moment. Or does that make
You
sense?
mean,
Or what?
or maybe that decision we just talked about and all those emotions that might be coming up that we
Yeah,
also talked about? Okay, I'm
right.
with you. I'm
Oh,
following.
but think about it, right? Like when you're transitioning and you're like, oh, I'm going to leave this job. Oh, no. But what's going to happen? First concern usually they have is like, okay, where am I going to get the money now that I usually get every single month in my paycheck? Because that's going to go away, right? So what's going to happen to me? And then you're thinking, oh my God, I haven't really prepared myself for what am I going to do? It's almost like you turned off a faucet, right? Or a switch saying, okay, that's no longer available. So now you have to prepare for this other thing coming, which is your business, in order for you to start. But if you haven't fully transformed, like grown into, because it's kind of like changing clothes, changing hats, right? From this
Hmm.
from this workforce all the way to entrepreneurship, that's a totally different costume. That's a totally different hat. Like you just said, you're used to having support at work. And then suddenly you have to do everything. You have to be, let's say, if you're a therapist, you're the therapist. You're also the receptionist. You're also the janitor. You're going to clean toilets, right? Because if you want to maintain your building, so to speak. Oh, you forgot, you're going to call clients too. And you're going to go do marketing, right? And make sure you have a strategy. So do you see how there's so many roles? And if you haven't
Yeah. And
known
so you have to
yourself,
decide which ones you're going to do. Yeah,
yeah,
like know which roles you're going to take or what's necessary. And also I know for me, my transition is not like I still work. And so I'm building my business.
right. A
Um
lot of people are like you, right? But then the question is, when do you let go of that other thing? Because it would look like
that's
I'm
part of
writing
the
a
plan.
book. There you go. That's where your planning works. Because if my one foot is on a boat, my other foot is on another boat. And then what happens if my business starts to take off, right? And so my foot gets
Right.
stretched. Like, oh my God, wait a minute. So something's got to give. Until you make the decision, it's very, very hard to jump into the entrepreneurship until you've made up your mind and said, okay, I'm now going to focus on this and I'm going to say goodbye to this one.
We'll probably have
Like,
to talk about that because I'm one of the ones where I have my plan, and there's transition that I do, and that works for me for where I'm at. However, I'm not the one that jumps out until I don't jump out too early.
yes,
But I get
yes.
you. I get you.
But
But
no,
there are
I agree
some
with
I
you as
commend
well.
those. There's some that jump out and they're like, "Let's do it," and I'm like, "More power to you." I love it, and they are rocking and reeling. I love it.
Yes, yes. No, I agree. Everybody has a different style. And if you don't know who you are,
Hmm.
unfortunately, that's why people try different things. And then they get frustrated. They're like, I've already spent so much money on this and this and this and that. Sometimes it's just a mindset issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really a planning issue, right? They really didn't plan.
Mm.
Well, they didn't plan to fail. In their head, they're going to succeed. But then, like you said, there was no,
Yeah.
okay, go step here first, and then step to the second one, and then step to this third one. If you have like a launching pad of some sort, you have a foundation, it's so much
Mhm.
better, right? Because at least when you
Yes.
jump
Yes.
into the
Definitely.
second, right, the second tier, you're like, oh, okay, this is how it feels like. And you get used to that again, and then you jump again to the next one, right? Like
Yes.
you keep on jumping until
Yes.
you build that foundation solid. I agree with you. There has to be a solid foundation. And they have to know where they're going because otherwise they're going to go over here and then, oh, I don't like that anymore. I'm going to go over here. Oh, I don't like that anymore. I'm going to go over here, right? That's most businesses that I've met are like that. You get tired. You
Yeah.
get tired. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you get so tired.
You
You run out
do.
of
You do.
energy.
And you yeah, plan can be as short as the next 4 weeks, then the next 3 months, then the next 6 months. It does not have to be, a 10-year plan. Like, there's no way. You don't know every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
love it. I love it.
I love that about that, right? So, yeah, explain to them like it's not like a rigid plan. So, the plan is like an outline. And then, what if another opportunity comes up? Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and she said, oh my God, somebody just brought me this several $1 million contract, and we need some coaches. And so they had to like rushly recruit, right? You see how things happen like that in the middle of everything. And then
Things
you're like,
happen.
okay, yeah, shall I jump into that opportunity or should I just wait a little bit for a better opportunity? It depends on you. What works for you is not what works for other people. So know that you are unique.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So,
Absolutely. I mean, because isn't it just like some of those people that go on like Shark Tank,
yeah,
and some of those other shows where or what is it? What the runway, the runway shows, and then there's people that are on Clubhouse and all those other things where there's like this influx of demand that happens. Even with the singer who he was a welder, and all he's been doing is going in and singing and put his video onto TikTok, and it picked up. And next thing you know, he's going to be opening for like Keith Urban in December or something like that. And so things can change quickly. And so
Yes.
I
Especially
love
now.
how you brought it up. It's a decision,
Mm-hmm.
and it still becomes a decision that you have to make. You may have a plan, but this goes back to assessing a gap. It's just a gap, right? And so what are you going to do? You're at a crossroads. What's the decision that you're going to make? And you have to understand. And I help my clients through this as well as talking them through what that decision process looks like. And there's tools that you have that as an entrepreneur you may not have developed. And so talk through that too all the time. So it's a good problem to have, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. At least you got something to solve. You don't want crickets when you're having a business, right? So you do want the movement, you want the activity. You just want to make sure that it is the right activity for that particular goal or target that you have. So as you move into 2022, you make sure that, like you said, you have to tie up the loose ends. I think a lot of the failures that happen, because I've seen this so many times, it's either they don't declutter, right? By the end of the year, they don't evaluate or assess what happened all throughout the year. So when you're sitting on this, think of it as a puddle of mess. But you're gonna start your new year like that? Like, what's gonna happen? You have all that mess and you're bringing it to next year. That's why I love decluttering by the end of each year. Because if you don't declutter, again, you bring it with you the next year. And think about the last time you did that. Because if you're not doing anything at all, well, you can look at your house, right? You can look at your home, see what's there. Is that thing still there?
Right.
You can tell they don't want to change. They don't want to change. So even if you want to change, I'm in that boat, right? Like, I always love change, and everybody else around me don't want to change. So it shows up physically in our homes.
And even if it's not, the analysis is that even if it's not the new year, then how about your birthday? How about some pivotal milestone, right? Pick a time in which you're going to go back and always evaluate it. You might have 4. It might be a quarterly thing. Who knows? But I like what you're saying. And that's very important to go back and reflect. And I think in COVID, a lot of people got a chance to hibernate. And so this is a perfect time to go ahead and start evaluating.
Yes. I love this discussion. Thank you, Monica, for gracing us with your presence and your skills and knowledge. We could just talk all day, girl.
There's a lot to learn when it comes to business.
There is. But these are good little tidbits that they can actually start working on for the next 3 months of their lives. And it would be fun to actually just see what happens, right? Because next year, it's going to be the year of the tiger, something else. So thank you, everyone.
You should play the song, Eye of the Tiger now. That's what you should be playing.
Right. That's the next song. I'm going to make sure I'll attach that on the comments, okay? The Eye of the Tiger. That's our theme song for next year. So, all right. Well, thank you, Monica, for gracing our show.
Thank
you.
I
hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of My Spiritual Money RX. Bye for now.